Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Stephen McNulty. I'm the Growth Officer here at Haventec and I will be your moderator today. It's a pleasure to welcome you and thank you for taking the time with us. We have an awesome agenda today and we'll be offering all sorts of actionable insights on trust, adoption, customer experience in your digital worlds. We will attempt to cover eliminating verification friction with biometric authentication, building applications with security and experience front of mind. We're going to introduce you to three amazing organizations, but two who are the reasons why we're here, and that's BAXE and IDEMIA. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about your CIAM journey. So if you would like to ask any questions during the session, please use the questions pane at any time, and at the end there will be some time for a Q&A and we will go through all the questions, and if we don't get to you we will get back to you, so don't worry. So I'm just going to start by quickly introducing today's speakers. I'm going to start with Dylan. Dylan Blankenship is a senior technology executive and entrepreneur with many years of experience in tech-driven innovation across Asia Pacific in particular. Prior to joining BAXE as the CTO, he was the Chief Product Officer for Red Pulse, the first platform deployed on the Chinese NEO blockchain. So as I mentioned, Dylan now leads Future Currency Group's BAXE blockchain platform development as the CTO and is currently an MBA candidate at the University of Cambridge Judge Business School. So welcome, Dylan. Alexei Paxinos is an experienced go-to-market strategy consultant for digital payments, connectivity, and identity technology solutions. He is currently the head of business development at IDEMIA. His remit expands across Asia Pacific, India, Middle East, and Africa, so he's pretty busy. And obviously, the role in a big organization like IDEMIA means that there are some IDEMIA implementations here in Australia, which he'll hint at as he introduces IDEMIA a bit later at Westpac, for example. And he is a former board director of the Governance, Risk and Compliance Institute, so a multifaceted person to have on the panel. And then finally, Dave Monsell, Haventec's CEO, previously 20 years at Accenture, where he held a number of senior roles, including managing director, maybe the inaugural managing director of Accenture Digital across Australia and New Zealand. He was also the inclusion and diversity lead, led capital markets, and prior to that had a security role at the Australian Stock Exchange. So the panel is a great panel, and without further ado, you're going to start to hear from them far more than you're going to hear from me. So Dylan, let's start with BAXE. So a lot of technology founders and leaders on this call and who'll listen subsequently. Maybe before we get into the meat of our conversation, could you take a minute to introduce BAXE?
Yeah, first I'd like to thank everyone for attending this morning, tonight, wherever you are. Super excited to tell you all about BAXE and our partners, Haventec and IDEMIA. We just finished what we call the hero version of our explainer video. I think it's the best way to kick off, get everyone into a good foundation to work from and understanding what BAXE is really all about. So without any further ado, let's get into it.
I'm here to tell you about BAXE, the first app that gives you everything you love about the internet with the security that only comes with blockchain technology. Chat, video, share, browse, bank, shop, stream, invest in crypto, NFTs, and a pizza margarita thin crust. Hey! And you get it all without giving up your data or security. They call it the future, we call it BAXE. So take a stand, download BAXE, or sit, and let's take back the internet. BAXE. Download the app. Upload the future.
All right. So as everyone can see, BAXE is on a mission to take back the internet. You know, I think we've all lost sight of what the internet was really meant to be. I think we saw a place of freedom, discovery, creativity. Instead, really what the internet's become is like a data wasteland. It's where your every move is tracked for advertising dollars by the big tech giants. BAXE's goal is to create a single decentralized platform for communication, storage, banking, e-commerce, and lifestyle. It's a super app. And simply, it's putting an ecosystem of cryptocurrency apps, integrations, and marketplaces in the hands of everyday users. You know, most people have had experience with traditional financial platforms, but with crypto, it can get a little confusing. And so, you know, BAXE is like the friend that you always ask you to help you figure out how to buy that Bitcoin or invest in that new investment product of the future. BAXE really looks to eliminate the complexity and risk while harnessing the power of privacy through the blockchain.
Thank you, Dylan. We're going to dive deeper into that as the webinar progresses. Alexi, let's turn to you. Could you give us an overview of IDEMIA?
Sure, thanks, Stephen, and it's great to be here on the panel here this morning. Welcome everybody from wherever you are in the world. So who are IDEMIA? IDEMIA is an international business with around 15,000 employees worldwide, including about 3,000 in R&D. What we do is we provide a trusted environment for consumers and citizens to perform their daily critical activities such as pay, connect, and travel, both in the physical and digital worlds. And what do I mean by that? Well, you've probably got something on your person which was made or distributed by IDEMIA. For example, we manufacture, personalize, and distribute all the Westpac Group's payment cards. When you travel internationally, also into and out of Australia, you pass through our Smart Gate biometric terminals, which we provide to the Australian Border Force, which makes travel more secure and more efficient. We also provide technology to a large telecommunications provider in Australia who use our services to distribute SIM cards to customers over the air. So we're a global business with a footprint servicing customers in 180 countries.
IDEMIA is one of those classic technology businesses, I think, that you know, they're so big and so interesting, you wonder why you never heard of them. And so we're so happy here at Haventec to be partnering with IDEMIA. So Dylan, just coming back to you, you're launching what many consider to be the world's first decentralized finance platform, and you're choosing to secure it with a facial authentication biometric solution. Can you talk us through where you got to, how you got to that point? Because I guess many might say that feels like it's not the status quo.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually looked to develop the first decentralized ecosystem, really. And there's a complexity that comes with having to learn how to use these kind of platforms. And really, what we're talking about here is systems of tomorrow. Passwordless and recoverability were key drivers when developing this solution for the BAXE platform. Most people are skeptical of cryptocurrencies already. There's a lot of confusion out there about what they are. And while there's an element of risk and uncertainty, we still believe this is where the future is really going. And in this future, trust would really need to be an integral part. So really considering all this, BAXE needed some solution that can only be provided, I think, at the moment by Haventec and IDEMIA. So we'll talk a little bit about what the two components are and really how they add value to the ecosystem. So Haventec's authentication is really special in their ability to create secure sessions without the need of 2FA or multi-factor. This really is key in having users the ability to not have to have additional devices, hardware, to be able to use the authentication, similar to like you would see with a key fob at a bank. Most platforms exist today only require a phone number and email address. It's not necessarily secure. I think there was a guy that quite famously lost $20 million on Coinbase. He hadn't told the IRS he had even $20 million there, but they had cloned a SIM card from AT&T. So really, this also means that any user can really create multiple identities and accounts. And I think when we think about Web 3.0, it's not really what we envision is a world where we really have no idea who we're dealing with when we're so connected into things like with the metaverse, and a lot of our lives now exist in these third worlds. or new worlds. So IDEMIA is able to integrate biometrics and digital identity into the authentication process provided by Haventec. It streamlines the account recovery procedure and allows users to regain access to their account with nothing more than a facial scan. For example, like if you get locked out of your account, the authentication journey would be quick and easy. Instead of having to call up the call center, having to go through a lengthy documentation step with an email, an SMS code, your license plate number, your birthday confirmation, your dog's maiden name, you know, all that kind of stuff. Usually you can't remember even your dog's name when you call it for some reason. You know, really, when we're dealing with BAXE and the IDEMIA and Haventec solution, you call up the call center, they'd send you a code or a link. You'd scan your face and that's it. So really, this is what IDEMIA's identity augmentation technology makes it so powerful when it's combined with Haventec's authentication.
What's interesting about listening to you talk about that is this alignment of security and experience, and not maybe what might be considered the norm now, which is that security equals friction and a challenge-filled experience. And so I like the idea that that's the future, and that feels to me like a good segue to you, Dave. So maybe some of the audience here might be more familiar with Haventec than IDEMIA or BAXE, since this is the first of a series, or the third of a series of key webinars. But let's assume we got some new folk who need to know a little bit about why we exist. So maybe just explain the role that Haventec plays in this solution, and I think maybe how it complements IDEMIA in particular.
Sure, thanks, Stephen. I'd just like to add my thanks to all of the participants for joining us here today. So unpacking a number of the comments that Dylan has introduced, the Haventec solution. Haventec Authenticate is a highly secure, single-step, passwordless, multi-factor authentication solution. And BAXE leverages Haventec's Authenticate platform to perform multi-factor authentication within the BAXE ecosystem. And this includes a facial authentication check via a self-taken photo. By partnering with Haventec, BAXE is able to create seamless authentication experiences, provide secure sessions by eliminating passwords, and remove the complexity for users and streamline the step-up verification process. BAXE are also using our other flagship product, Haventec Sanctum, to protect sensitive customer data stored in their solution. Now, Haventec's been partnering with BAXE and IDEMIA from early in the journey. What we love about both these organizations are their global ambitions, their digital-first approach to marketplace, their innovative use of next-generation technology, including the blockchain, and really importantly for us, their focus on placing their customers' privacy at the center of the user experience. Our platform provides BAXE's customers with a simple, convenient, privacy-enhancing means of getting through the digital front door for every authentication they do during login. No complex passwords, no SMSs, no one-time PINs, and no need for the customer to leave the brand. So they stay within the BAXE brand to securely access the platform, the BAXE platform. So what IDEMIA and Haventec offer BAXE together is a passwordless user experience across the entire BAXE application. IDEMIA with their biometric scan and Haventec with their 4-digit PIN. And both solutions are built on technology that's designed to protect the privacy of BAXE's customers. Really important. The Haventec platform itself, it's a decentralized digital authentication solution, which means if BAXE is ever breached, no passwords can be stolen.
Thank you, Dave. And I guess, you know, putting myself in the shoes of an audience member, I'm starting to understand how this is different to what I might normally experience. But one of the things I might think is that I have Face ID on my device. How does this solution differ from what might happen when I log into CBA or to some of the other banks here in Australia? So maybe Alexi, that might be a good question for you to tackle. You know, how does what you're doing differentiate from, say, the Samsung or Apple approach?
Sure. I think, look, firstly, I want to say that Face ID and other forms of biometric device-based authentication are a very useful tool to secure transactions. And I think they represent a great advancement in consumer convenience, security, and accessibility as well. But any device-based authentication service, it really, it only tells you that the person whose biometrics are stored on the phone match the person trying to access the phone at that moment. So there are limitations to its effectiveness. For instance, Stephen, our moderator today, you could have your face loaded onto Dylan's phone, and then you could get access to Dylan's apps, where those apps are using Face ID to authenticate, and those apps would not know that it's not actually Dylan and that it is actually you. So the solution that BAXE has implemented vastly limits this kind of unauthorized access and can also unlock some more interesting use cases like account recovery with your face that Dylan spoke about earlier. Because what BAXE will do is BAXE will capture your biometric as part of your onboarding, as part of the onboarding process into the ecosystem. And they will align that with all the other identifiers you have about yourself, like your name, your date of birth, all the other common stuff that you provide to a service provider to get KYC and to obtain access to a solution. Now, once BAXE has that piece of information about you, it's now very, very difficult for somebody else to come along and impersonate you. Because what BAXE will do is they'll, anytime there's something that needs to, certain authentication scenarios, particularly the high risk ones, like what Dylan spoke about earlier around account recovery and so on. What BAXE can do is just invoke a selfie check on the phone or via the contact center, and that will compare the face of the person in front of the phone with the face of the person that was onboarded. And so you have this very direct and very certain, high level of certainty and assurance that the person who's operating the account right now is the person who you initially onboarded to the service.
Thank you for that. So, you know, Dave, incorporating this passwordless silent MFA biometric authentication model into a solution like BAXE, right at the very beginning of your intro, you said that we've been working with BAXE and IDEMIA since the inception of the platform. But there are probably plenty of folk in our audience today who maybe don't have what might be called perfect timing, who maybe already have an existing app with an active user base. What advice would you give to product owners and digital officers and others who are thinking about improving both security and experience of their customer set?
All right. Well, first off, I want to start with a fairly black and white statement, is that it can be done. There are lots of organizations now on the planet and here in Australia who are offering their customers privacy enhancing, simple and convenient authentication to identify themselves through the digital front, to get them through the digital front door and to get them using their application. So I do want to start with, it can be done. I think for solutions like ours, for those to be relevant to organizations that we aspire to call clients, our platform needs to be as applicable to the ambitions of greenfield organizations like Dylan's, like BAXE, who are building a solution from scratch, to brownfield organizations where you've got existing customers and existing applications digitally connecting to those brands. So personally, Haventec, we've invested and will continue to invest in enhancements to our platform that reduce both the time and the effort to integrate our offerings into our clients' solutions and our clients' technology. This includes developer SDKs to accelerate mobile app integration, support for relevant industry standards, including SAML, FIDO2, and OpenID Connect. Just, you know, the Haventec platform, it natively integrates with all of the leading commercial identity and access management solutions, including both Auth0 and Microsoft. So if you've got an investment in a commercial consumer identity and access management solution, you do not need to rip that out to get access to the benefits we're talking about here.
Thank you. All right, so we've heard about the solution and why 3 innovative organizations are coming together to offer something to Australians, but also globally, that is pretty special and recognizes where we think the web is going. In segment 2, we're going to pivot a little bit and talk a little bit more about the customer and their experience. Because it's all well and good having a digital and secure channel that presents huge challenges to hackers if the experience is flawed. And so, Dylan, I'm going to start with you. Maybe just expand a little bit on what experience meant in thinking about BAXE's overall journey and what you wanted to bring to market.
Yeah, I mean, I think the verification process is kind of a foundational element, kind of a cornerstone to BAXE's overall customer journey and digital experience. Authentication is the key to unlocking the door to the digital gateway. Today, that's cryptocurrency. Tomorrow, that's the metaverse. But inevitably, it offers new and exciting opportunities that will eventually encompass your entire lifestyle. So whether it's encrypted, secure chat with your friends, or discovering online social communities, storing your most important documents in the cloud, or even you're managing your finances. It's all possible, will be all possible with BAXE, and this is why we really wanted to make sure that the experience, this whole experience, was completely secure. As far as the digital experience is concerned, there are far too many companies out there that don't take seriously the responsibility that comes with financial services. This is especially true with the new crypto companies that don't understand this true responsibility of managing someone else's money, or how big tech companies treat their users' personal privacy. Digital identities are a massive responsibility, and we want to make sure authentication offers that level of protection. I think when I think about when I've got a problem with my bank account, I can walk into a bank branch. I can call up a call center, and there's someone there to listen. There's someone there to help solve my problem. I think we've all seen with the pandemic when we email a support line, and you get a reply back saying that we'll look at your ticket after waiting 3 months. It's just not acceptable. And today, it's not acceptable really during the pandemic, and it's really not acceptable with anyone that's holding your money. And so BAXE really takes great responsibility with this, I guess is what I'm saying. And so BAXE also places immense importance on users having ownership of their digital identities and ultimately having control over how that information is used. We believe that your identity is your own property. I think everyone here believes that as well. And really, that's how users are going to start to take back the internet. And that's not an initiative of BAXE. It's an initiative of the partners on this panel. And I think it's really an initiative of where the world's going. This is our property. It's our data. It's our privacy. It's not something that's given to us or sold to us. It's something that is very personal to us.
You just mentioned data. So, you're going to be incorporating and managing some very important data on behalf of your customers. And those customers will start to build out some preferences as to how they want to use your platform. I'm just interested how you brought that into your thinking in pulling this together.
They say the road is paved with good intentions, right? And I think a lot of the big tech companies really they all had great intentions when they started collecting our data, because they wanted to send us advertisement that was really curated for us. I mean, have you ever actually tried to turn off the third-party tracking to make the advertising personal on Facebook? I did the other day because I didn't even want them to have that. And what I found was all I have to do is click on one gaming ad, and the next thing I know is I only get gaming ads, and you have to report all of them as abuse to get them to turn off, to get it to turn off. So really, you know, it does add some value, but then it also inevitably leads us down this road. And so, you know, data and what we use it for is integral to everything we do at BAXE, mainly because there's the importance of privacy. And, you know, so at BAXE, I think everyone can understand at this point that we're not going to sell our customers' data. And in fact, we give ownership of that data. So when we talk about user preferences, we actually try to take a limited approach at BAXE, to really only use what we need in order to improve their experience. I'm not going to say that BAXE doesn't collect anything. You know, we need to understand about basic anonymized analytics to understand about who it is that's visiting our site and how to make the experience the best as possible. But we really try to take a limited approach. We actually have a privacy roadmap that shows kind of where we are with our ambitions for privacy and where we hope to be in the future. And we believe that both Alexi and Dave are quite critical to that roadmap. So anyway, it's a pretty important stance for BAXE, and it's relationship, and I almost say it's our contract to our user base. You know.
Thank you, Dylan. Dave, I'm going to turn to you. So Haventec, we're the only organization to hold the Australian Technology Award for Cybersecurity at the same time as holding the Innovation Australia Cybersecurity Award for Excellence. So there's a consensus forming that that the way we think about privacy is the way that industry leaders think is directionally correct. And here we have Dylan and Alexi, you know, hopefully in our corner. So when I you know, with that in mind, how do you hear the market, and maybe even focusing on Australia, around this merging of security and experience?
Well, for many of us, our everyday financial service experience, and more often than not, our broader everyday digital experience often starts at a digital front door that sees us needing to enter a username and a password. That means of accessing a digital services, it's so popular that it's estimated that on average we each have 100 usernames and passwords that we each need to manage. Now, more often than not, given the underlying weaknesses associated with that means of authenticating and identifying your customers, technology organizations have added additional steps in the authentication process, often referred to as friction, whether that's going and getting a 6-digit PIN from your mobile phone and typing it back into your web browser, or checking an authenticator app and typing a PIN that lasts a minute into some other device. And we've heard from organizations, in actual fact, late last year on stage with organizations, that customers expect authentication friction. In actual fact, customers perceive the more friction, the more secure the solution. We'd argue quite the opposite. In actual fact, the data that's available to us suggests quite the opposite. The data suggests that customers want simplicity. They want something easy to remember. And if you're interested in where that insight comes from, have a look at NordPass's top 10 most common passwords from last year. They're all really easy to remember. I mean, that's people telling us they want something simple to remember. The data also suggests that customers reuse their digital identities. And case in point, the Microsoft research from a couple of years ago around password reuse across digital services, but also some recent research globally through Built With, that the majority of us, when given the choice, will reuse our Facebook or our Google ID to sign in. So we also want convenience. We don't want 100 usernames and passwords we've got to remember. We want simplicity and we want convenience. And then more importantly, back to what we think those two things should be coupled with. And I'm going to refer specifically to the privacy report from the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner from last year that found 70% of Australians consider the protection of their personal information to be a major concern in their life. Reinforcing the points that Australians value privacy. And this data does not have Australia as an outlier. In actual fact, the Australian research is supported by other research done in other jurisdictions that we all value privacy. So what's the market telling us? More importantly, what are our customers telling us? Our customers like BAXE and our collaborators like IDEMIA, that their customers, the people they aspire to be relevant to, they want simplicity, they want convenience, and they want privacy. And I would append that if you are building a digital app and looking to service a global customer base, you want to make it as easy as possible for them to get through the front door. You want to be confident that they are who they say they are. So that getting through the front door experience is something that's going to drive adoption, not put them off, not drive abandonment, but get them into your application and get you servicing them and get some value out of ultimately the primary investment, which is the functionality within your digital offering.
Thank you, Dave. And Alexei, I would assume that the investment that IDEMIA is making in biometrics is one of only a number of ways that IDEMIA is presenting itself to this exact problem that Dave's highlighted here. This idea of simplicity and convenience, yet not compromising privacy and security. So maybe give us a few minutes on what IDEMIA's thinking is in this space.
Sure, and I mean that's the challenge, I think, of all service organisations who are looking to provide a service to somebody which is of importance to them, whether it's financial services or the ability to move freely between borders or be able to vote or access their education. So those are all critical services. They're important to people. They matter. So it's always important for organisations like ours as a global identity business to continually focus on both security and convenience, which is again like just what customers want. Now they want a few other things as well. They like to have sustainability too, which is important as well as a theme, and I'll talk about that in a second. Accessibility is also important too, and that speaks to the convenience element, which is about, again, accessing my services in the most convenient way possible with the least effort, but making sure they're actually secure. So we talked a bit about identity. That needs securing, of course. And so do payments as well. We do a lot of work in the payment space. And for example, we've been in the business of securing payment transactions for a very long time, manufacturing the first EMV chip card, which we did back in 1996. So now, since then, in the payments domain, we've developed a lot of tech to make it easier for customers to get access to their payment credentials, to start making payments when they need to make payments easily. So for example, we have the technology to be able to offer the ability to change your PIN on your smartphone, which is reduction in paper waste. And then there's also a convenience element there for the consumer. Many banks around Australia already offer that technology today. Also, if you might recall, the last time you may have applied for a credit card, there are some government requirements that say that those kinds of financial services should come with certain guides and conditions, attach them and sent to you, and often you'll get those, but you'll get them in the mail in the form of a booklet, and they can be quite thick. And again, we've got technology that means that those can be emailed to you, and we can offer the ability for a bank or a card issuer to email T's and C's to their cardholders instead of having those T's and C's arrive in the mail.
So panelists, we've got 20 minutes to go. With segment 3, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. If you could be quite succinct with your answers, and then we'll move to the Q&A. So segment 3 is a little bit around journey and lessons, and just hopefully some point wisdom that we can impart on our attendees. So Dylan, I might start with you. The advice you might give some of the product owners and founders looking at authentication solutions, if you could boil down the key lessons that you've learned on this journey.
Yeah, yeah, I think I'd like to refocus the question just a little bit and just talk about products. And when we talk about products at BAXE specifically, and I think really when we're talking about products with any company, you know, we need to bring products where people could intrinsically just understand and naturally understand the value of these products. Whether that's for us, whether that's sending money overseas, where we've all felt the challenges using the SWIFT network, payments getting lost, taking days to get somewhere, or high interest yield accounts, you know, where we've got bond rates and CDs and savings accounts at 0. You know, BAXE offering an account at 8 to 10 interest. Everybody intrinsically understands the value of that. Investing in cryptocurrency, for instance, you know, we all have friends talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum. We watch the news. You know, everybody's waking up to what the future is, and it's decentralization and it's cryptocurrencies. So anyway, you know, if you build it, they will come as a strategy, which I've seen a lot of tech startups follow. I can promise you, you know, and I've had lots of discussions with CEOs in the past. I'm a platform builder. I've done it my whole life. I can promise you that if you build it, it does not guarantee people will come. But you know, when people are naturally drawn to products that offer real value, products that solve real problems, there's a network effect that attracts users. Those users attract their friends. Those friends attract their families. They tell everybody and their dog about the amazing experience that they've had. Ultimately, though, when products are insanely great, to take a cue from Steve Jobs, if you build it, and in the case of the iPhone, they will come. So that's my kind of lessons learned, and what I think everybody should look at when they build products. You know, what are the pain points to solve, and are they easy pain points for people to understand?
And Dave, if I could just quickly turn to you, you know, CIAM, authentication, you know, increasingly foundational components of apps. Maybe some of the leaders we have on this call might think that, you know, solving those problems might be more of a burden than an opportunity. What would you say to someone who's facing that conundrum?
Well, we know that well-designed authentication can improve accessibility, can drive adoption, can enhance privacy, and, you know, very importantly, help you stand out from the competitors. To bring that to life, a case study of, you know, another one of our Australian customers, 86400, a leading digital bank, can demonstrate the value that, you know, both a CTO and a well thought through identity and access management solution can provide, how a well thought out access management solution can provide value to both the business and the customers. The CTO was key to the decision to include Haventec Authenticate as the authentication solution, and it now plays an integral part in their market-leading customer experience. And I'll put some substance on market-leading. In September 2020, 86400 won the Good Design Award and Best in Class accolade at the Digital Design Apps and Software category. And same year, their Net Promoter Score was 47.4. The big four banks in Australia average was 2.8. So, you know, if you're standing around talking to friends at a barbecue, you're more likely to get a plug from an 86400 customer than some of the other banks, certainly at the time. Now, the role that we play, we're not claiming all of those scores, but in research that was conducted by Singularity Mesh in 2020 on how easily you can sign up to a new bank account on a mobile app here in Australia, 86400 was identified as the leader, allowing users to open an account and transact within about 2 minutes. This research highlighted identity, authentication, and security, the role we play as an area that can provide some compelling user improvements while maintaining privacy.
And many of those facts didn't go unnoticed. You know, there's a reason why 86400 is the National Australia Bank's new digital bank. Pretty extraordinary story that we're really pleased to be part of. That wraps up the segments that we wanted to cover in the webinar. We have a few questions that have come through. So I'm just going to, I'm just scanning those questions. Alexei, there's an interesting one that's come through for you based on the conversation that we had earlier around Face ID. I'm just going to read it out. Face ID uses depth mapping to prevent it being fooled by someone holding up a 2D photo. If your system is secured by a 2D self-taken photo, how can you stop anyone gaining access? I guess that's an interesting question as to whether that selfie photo is considered 2D or not. If you could expand on the things that are on that person's mind that's directly from an audience member.
Sure, I think that's a great question, and we didn't get a chance to touch specifically on what on that particular aspect about the solution that's being deployed with BAXE. I think with any facial ID or facial recognition biometric-based solution that's going to use the face, it's critically important to include a feature that is not always included, by the way. It's called Liveness Detection, and that is the process of doing a brief video stream of the person as they're taking a selfie and performing a number of anti-fraud and anti-spoofing checks on that video stream to ensure that that person isn't actually holding up a photo of Dylan. It is actually Dylan, nor is it a video of Dylan, for example, on a phone, or a photo of Dylan being shown up on a phone. There's many, many different ways to try and spoof and fool the system. Now, importantly, and I have to say this because importantly, I can say everything I like about, you know, how good our liveness detection is, and that's just me saying it, but there is a standards body out there called IBETA, and one of the things they do is they just go and test liveness detection, and they try and spoof it with hundreds of presentation attacks. They call them presentation attacks. So photo, black and white photo, color photo, video, latex mask, all that kind of stuff. And you can get to 2 levels on IBETA. You can get accreditation on 2 levels. There's level 1, which is more basic attacks, and level 2, which is more sophisticated attacks where the fraudster's actually gone out and spent money and hours trying to recreate a face of Dylan. So we're accredited at level 1 and level 2. So what does that mean? That means that you know, we've had our solution gone through the whole kind of testing and evaluation process to make sure that it can't be spoofed in that way very easily at all. And so that's how you get the high level of assurance that it is actually a genuine person accessing the service. And that's fundamental to any Face ID type solution, is it needs to have that component in it.
Thank you very much.
I feel even safer than I did before, Alexei.
I guess, I mean, Dylan, thinking about that, are all types of biometrics kind of equally valid? You know, there's plenty of material out there that talks to voice and iris and other things. Did you think about that when you were thinking about that?
I just finished a project at Cambridge, you know, and it's related to kind of, let's say, biometrics of the future, or really, you know, identity of the future, not just biometrics. But I would say no. There's different methods to spoof the biometrics. Obviously, Alexei talked about some ways of doing presentation and trying to do that. But I think that biometrics generally won't be the same. It won't be anything like what we see today in the future. So I think the future biometrics are likely going to be based on the user's behavior, or our unique interactions with the devices. So as an example, like behavioral biometric verification methods tomorrow might include keystroke dynamics, how a user moves the mouse, vibrations, not necessarily voice prints, but the vibrations of our voice as we speak. Mouse use characteristics, signature analysis, and even in the future, we talk about like Elon Musk adding connectivity to the brain. We might see cognitive biometrics characteristics that we can use. So I mean, I guess let's imagine just being able to one day when we sit at the computer and log into the metaverse, that it already knows that you are who you are and you're authenticated just by being who you are. So yeah, I don't think they're the same.
Dave, one of the things that occurs to me in listening to Alexei and Dylan is that unlike, say, a password, your biometric, whatever it is could be considered an immutable piece of data, i.e. it won't change either now or at any point in the future. That means that if it gets stolen, like your fingerprint or your facial biometric, it's not as if you can then go. None of us really are in a position to, unless you're in Face Off and you know John Woo, to get a new face. So I feel like the risk of that data being compromised is a little bit different to the risk of a password being compromised. So how should we be thinking about the protection of that data?
You're right. Sort of the nice or the rather convenient way that you can get a new username and password, and the disposable nature of them means if they are stolen, you simply get reissued another one. Now, the process that you go through may be a bit inconvenient. You may have lost some value along the way. You may reuse that across multiple digital services. You can go and get a new one. We don't necessarily think, though, as we've talked here, that a proliferation of username and passwords are going to be the future for identification of digital services. In actual fact, we've all argued fairly strongly that making it simple and convenient for clients and customers to get access to digital services is the future. And with one of the ways that an organization is doing that is on data sets that can't be renewed or can't be issued as new, such as a biometric scan or a biometric fingerprint. Look very hard at the decisions that you're making now around the technologies that you're partnering with or technology providers you're partnering with to store this information. And you would argue that if the means by which they're protecting that information is similar to the means by which organizations are currently protecting username and passwords, you might need to spend some more time finding a more secure solution. There certainly is, a correlation between breaches on centrally stored sensitive information and they having a relatively material impact on an organization and their customer base. Look for solutions that don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Look for decentralized options that genuinely protect, not defend, data sets that are going to be more and more important as we access more and more digital services in our life.
Well, I can't think of a better way to finish our webinar. There's lots of value that we can bring with introducing you to some of our customers like Dylan at BAXE or some of our partners like Alexei at IDEMIA. I can assure this audience that what we're doing here in Australia is world leading. The patents that we're protecting in Haventec are global, and the work that Dylan and Alexei is doing is not some foreshadowing of something that's elsewhere on the planet. We're leading, and so we should be very proud and very excited about that. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. I think we peaked out at 33 attendees, and we've got a whole bunch who are going to look at the webinar on their own time. Please help us create better webinars by completing the survey at the end of this session, and let us know what intrigues you. I'm the host of Haventec's podcast, Haven Talk, and I can let you know that the next topic that we're going to be covering on the Haven Talk podcast is around quantum computing and its impact on authentication. Everyone will receive a copy of this recording via email. Please share far and wide. Most of you have got value out of this. Sharing in your network will hopefully be something seen as something positive. Thanks again to our panelists, and have a fantastic day.